position on Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei CFO, by settling with her and let her leave Canada for China.
CDC director broke with committee and backed COVID boosters.
State of Texas set out to do forensic audit of the 4 counties' 2020 election result.
Pew Research found President Biden's approval rate dropped to new low.
The feature story, Arizona audit result out. Silicon Valley entrepreneur said 200,000 excess death by COVID vaccine. Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
I'm Kathy Zhang. Today is September 24th.
Right. So first, a quick word about the feature story on the Safe Chat. So Kathy will say a few more words about that.
Right. So everybody, as a lot of people care about the Arizona Maricopa County 2020 election audit report. So the result came out today, this afternoon. So what's the major takeout? And also, as the CDC director backed the COVID-19 vaccine booster, but one of the Silicon Valley entrepreneur who is a multi-millionaire, he, based on his own research and others' research, saying that actually the vaccine kills more than saved.
Very shocking. Anyway, so stay tuned for that. And first, let's look at the quick news today. First piece of news, I want to talk to you about the Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou, who was the CFO. And she was released today after striking a deal with the U.S. prosecutors in courtroom. And so this news is actually maybe just some passing by news for most Americans, but it's a very, very big deal in the Chinese world. Let me explain. Actually, it should be a very big deal for the American too. Anyway, let's just roll back the time. Canadian police arrested Meng in December 2018, which is almost like 3 years ago, okay, at the Vancouver airport on a U.S. warrant, all right? So U.S. Eastern District Court of New York issued a subpoena, and the Canadian police arrested her on demand, on request by U.S. Okay, she was accused of the fraud in the U.S. connected to her alleged violation of the American sanction with Iran, such as conspiracy to commit a wire fraud, and the conspiracy to commit bank fraud, and so on. Okay, at that time, she did not plead guilty. So U.S. requested her extradition from Canada, but she resisted. It became a big tension point between China and the West. 9 days after her arrest, Chinese authority, or CCP, arrested 2 Canadian, Michael Korvrig and Michael Spenver, on espionage charges. One guy is a businessman, the other person is a retired diplomat, all right? It has been widely believed that the arrests were retaliation against the Canada's arresting Meng Wanzhou. Okay, so one Michael Spenver, the businessman, was given an 11-year sentence, all right? And the court date for the retired diplomat is not being set. Anyway, further on, a few weeks after their arrest, a Chinese court toughened the sentence for another Canadian. His name is called Robert Schellenberg, and he was initially charged to 15 years in prison on drug trafficking. All right, they extend that to a death sentence. Anyway, news from Beijing revealed that after Meng's release, the 2 Michaels will be released too, and Schellenberg's sentence will be reversed back to 15 years. All right. Okay, so what is the settlement then? The settlement is arranged so that the Meng will admit to the fact stated in the charge in exchange for a delayed prosecution to next year. If she does not dispute the charge in public, the delayed charge prosecution will be dropped. But if she disputes it about it publicly, then the prosecution will resume. But of course, that's just in vain because she will be in China, and the U.S. has no jurisdiction over her if she were to dispute the charge. But anyway, that's just the deal between the 2 countries. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you think.
So what do you think is the implication?
This is like a normal, like a business deal, right? Almost like not business deal, diplomatic deal. But to me, this is just another big mistake. All right, the charge and the arrest by the Canadian police, of course, under the pressure or request, however you call it, is the happened during the Trump administration time, and that's the right move. Okay, normally, if you have a normal country you deal with, okay, you make deal with your neighbor, you make deal with your business partner. That's kind of normal. But China / CCP, okay, CCP is not a normal country. It's a deal between good and evil. What kind of deal between good and evil will work? It doesn't work. Okay, it's always a bad compromise, and it will feed on the CCP. And U.S. should never do that. Just hold on to principle. Trump demonstrated there's no risk. Okay, stay strong with the CCP. Americans is booming. There's no consequence. And this is the business world. They're always afraid. And I'm sad to see that we're reverting back to that vulnerable, weak, and kind of treating communists just as another competitor or partner type of relationship. This is very, very wrong. That's my quick comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So there are always people thinking, we rely on the 1.4 billion Chinese market, and there should be a compromise. But really, like as we said, I agree. It's a very different thinking for the CCP. It's not normal thinking. So when you deal with it, you should not treat it as a normal kind of government or even just a political party.
It's something that very hard for the U.S. U.S. to learn, except Trump and Pompeo. Okay, it's very hard for them to learn. Okay, from George Bush, from George Bush, from Clinton, from George W. Bush and Obama. They don't get it. They don't get it. This is not a normal country. Okay, with 40 years trading with them, 40 years exchange with them, 40 years compromise with them. What do we got? We feed on this communist regime, who has no capability to grow its economy. Any communist nation cannot grow their economy. They just go for bankruptcy without exception. But feeding by the U.S., it grew to be the position of today and come to threaten the U.S. What do we got with that kind of compromise? Cannot be worse. Cannot be any worse. So my word is, this is just another bad compromise. And again, our administration is misreading China. It's not China. It's called the Communist Party. It's the Chinese Communist Party, which we just have to hold a strong, strong stance. And with that, you remember, right? You remember Reagan. You remember Trump. We win. We shall stay with that. That's my quick comment.
Okay, so let's go to the next piece of news. The CDC director is in awe with the advisory committee and the backs COVID boosters for the so-called high-risk workers. So what happened is today the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention backed a booster shot of the Pfizer and BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for Americans aged 65 and older, all adults over 50 years old with underlying conditions, and some adults as they categorize as in the high-risk working and institutional settings, including healthcare workers, teachers, and the residents of homeless shelters and prisoners. So this recommendation covers people who received their second Pfizer BioNTech shot at least 6 months earlier. The CDC said that a group is currently about 26 million people, including 13 million aged 65 or older. So, but on the other hand, actually, the CDC's advisory committee yesterday, this committee is on immunization practices. So yesterday, the panel recommended booster only for the elderly and some people with the underlying medical conditions, but not for the groups, including those healthcare workers, teachers, and who lived in the homeless shelter and prisoners. So the Pfizer and some top U.S. health officers like Dr. Anthony Fauci had argued that the extra round of shots are needed to address waning immunity. Fauci and others have also said that they could help contain surging hospitalizations and deaths caused by the Delta variant of the COVID-19 by cutting breakthrough infections of fully vaccinated people. Right now, more than 100 million people in the U.S. are fully vaccinated, and which is about 64% of the eligible population. So, but as for the effects and the benefit or cost of the vaccine, actually there are very different opinions. In the past week, actually, FDC held a public hearing, and quite some doctors and other people from our society came to the public hearing, voiced out their concerns. Among them, there's a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, Steve Kirsch. He spoke out something quite explosive, quite shocking. And actually, I did an interview with him yesterday. So it's a lengthy interview, but I will present to you just part of it for today's presentation, feature story on SafeChat. So please stay with us to listen to what he has to say.
Quite a statement. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, Texas Secretary of the State office on September 23rd, which is yesterday, announced a full forensic audit of the 2020 general election in 4 of the state's counties. And what are they? Actually, 2 Democratic counties and 2 Republican counties: Dallas, Harris, and Tarrant and Collins. All right, and it also anticipates the legislature will provide funding for this audit. So it looks like it will be much easier than the Arizona one. Texas currently is without a Secretary of State since the retirement of the previous one, and the governor has not yet appointed a successor. Okay, so back in the 2020 election, President Trump won Texas by almost 630,000 votes, which is about a bit more than 52% of the total votes. Well, yesterday on the same day, and President Trump issued an open letter. All right, he urged Governor Abbott to conduct a forensic audit, saying that your citizens do not trust the election system, and they want your leadership on this issue, which is the number one thing they care about. It is their most important issue, one that will affect 2022 and 2024. All right, I don't know, what do you think? This is the 4 counties are the large counties in Texas. We'll see. I really think everybody should support things like that, right? What's wrong with just validating the voting result?
Right.
Red state, blue
especially
state.
the process.
Yeah.
Since when people, it's not a small amount of people have doubts. If they are not confident with the election system, then anyone should support an audit sufficient enough to make people to at least to prove to them, provide them with evidence showing how much confidence they should have in this election system. Nobody should really oppose that.
Yeah, nobody should doubt it. And if people doubt it, you ask them, what are you doubting for? Why are you doubting it? Okay, and I think Texas is as a state that picking 2 Democratic counties and 2 Republican counties, that's a pretty fair job.
Yeah, because back in 2016,
right,
after the election, I saw some oppositions and the doubts casted towards at that time the voting system. But of course, most of them came from the Democratic Party side. So I think that's all fair. When people have doubts, especially they have some evidence or experience, if they worth being, have a voice and also have a process to audit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the only thing that is right, or can only be right. All right, and let's move on to the most recent poll. The Pew Research Center survey taken just a few days ago, between September 13th through 19th, all right, among about 10,000, a bit more than 10,000 U.S. adults, showed that 44% of Americans now approve of Biden's job performance, compared to 55% who approved it just in July. All right, so it dropped 11%. Disapproval rate now standing at 53% compared to 43% just 2 months ago. And Biden's approval among Democrats, well, it's a false among all the groups, but his disapproval among Democrats has also fallen by double digit, 13%. All right, so going from previous 88% in July to 75% now. On whether Biden could unite the country, which is the main message that Biden sent out in his inauguration in January, a majority of 66% said they are not confident in it, all right, compared to 34% who believe he can. And almost at the same time, September 22nd, the Gallup survey also showed Biden's approval rating tumbling to 43%. And while in the meantime, a majority or 53% disapprove his job performance. All right, so let's move on to how about the Safe Chat?
Okay, yeah, so today we'll have two feature story to share with you on Safe Chat. One is the Arizona audit result. There are some quite revealing evidence is being shared by the audit team, so you don't want to miss that. And also, as I mentioned before, whether the vaccine, really saves people, or on the other hand, it's a different story. So this entrepreneur from Silicon Valley really did his research.
You just have to watch it. You just have to watch it. Just follow us over there. All right, okay, let's go. Let's give ourselves, 5 seconds.